Phoenix Raceway will be the site of an IndyCar NASCAR doubleheader next season, and the ongoing playoff format debate heats up. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove, presented by Tableau TV. Hope you're doing well. In a few moments, we've got power rankings. A few Hendrick Motorsports teams took a bit of a tumble. Stay tuned to see who moved up, who replaced them. But before we can get to that, we've got some slightly off-topic news out of the IndyCar open wheel racing world. The 2026 IndyCar schedule was just released. We already know about the Craftsman Truck Series crossover at St. Petersburg early in the season, but look at that March 7th Phoenix Raceway date. IndyCar and NASCAR will share the spring Phoenix weekend. IndyCar will share Saturday with the soon-to-be O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Cup will race on Sunday. Pretty cool, though, to see the two top levels of motorsports in the United States share a race weekend once again. It's been a few years. Maybe go back to the Indy Road Course? Maybe I'm forgetting one. It's been a few years. Gotta imagine Fox is behind this. They broadcast the full truck schedule, the full IndyCar schedule, and the first third or so of the Cup schedule. Trucks and IndyCar at St. Pete next week, Cup and IndyCar at Phoenix. Great opportunity early in the year for Fox to cross-promote. Although I also love this theory from reporter Jenna Fryer, who posted, the NASCAR IndyCar Phoenix doubleheader feels, see, we can and do host other series at our tracks. I wonder if NASCAR will use this as evidence in their defense against 2311 and Front Row. Although it's worth noting, Iowa was taken off the IndyCar schedule, which is also a NASCAR-owned track, so really, this is like a one-for-one swap, but that theory got a chuckle out of me nonetheless. IndyCar Cup Phoenix Raceway, March 2026. Exciting stuff. Love to see it. Again, power rankings coming up in just a few minutes. I always love ranking the top 10 Cup Series drivers and teams. This week, Bristol gave us a lot to think about. But first, the playoff format debate continues to heat up. This week, the NASCAR Playoff Committee is expected to hold maybe one of their final meetings. There's a great chance we could see a new Cup Series playoff format for 2026. Mark Martin, former driver on the playoff committee, continues to stump for a full season Winston Cup era points format. Recent industry leaks suggest NASCAR is likely to do away with the one-race winner-take-all finale. At the very least, could open that up to a 3 or 4 race final round. There's a reason NASCAR has a playoff committee. It includes members of the sanctioning body, drivers, team owners, media, television, groups representing many different industry stakeholders. I mentioned TV. NASCAR just signed a new media deal worth over $7 billion, worth over $1 billion per year for the next 7 seasons. That TV money funds the vast majority of the industry. They do have a seat on the playoff committee, and many suspect they have one of the greatest voices at that table. But Jeff Burton, former driver, still kind of a driver representative, also TV analyst for NBC, adamantly defended NBC on the Door Bumper Clear podcast this week, saying, quote, TV doesn't make format decisions. NASCAR makes those decisions. TV didn't say, here's your format, here's what you're doing. He said that the idea that NBC controls the playoff format is BS. To be fair, to Jeff Burton's point, the first version of the elimination-style playoffs actually came around at the end of the ESPN broadcast era. It was already in place when NBC picked up the rights. Now, a couple years into NBC's run, the format was tweaked to include stages and playoff points. But no, to Burton's point, I don't believe NBC executives drew up the current playoff format, passed it to the France family, and said, hey, this is what we want. I do believe that NBC executives have a large voice when it comes to the playoff format more broadly. NBC understands playoffs. They do the NFL. I think they've got the NBA broadcast rights again starting soon. I'm sure when NBC is trying to sell commercial space to companies that are none the wiser, being able to pitch a playoff race helps them seal the deal. Ultimately, yes, NASCAR gets the final say. They draft up the playoff format, but NBC is one of the sport's largest stakeholders, arguably the largest. They absolutely get a say. Let me put it this way. If NBC executives tomorrow went to Steve O'Donnell, Steve Phelps, Jim France, Lisa France Kennedy and said, hey, we want to go back to full season pre-2004 points, I think NASCAR would listen. I think that would move the needle significantly. I'm not saying it would be a done deal. Homestead Miami Speedway, which is a NASCAR-owned track, for example, may come out and say, well, hey, wait, we have the finale next year. We want to be able to sell tickets to a compelling championship fight. There would be other voices that would get a say. It's not like NBC gets the final say, but let's not kid ourselves here. NBC, the broadcasters, have one of the largest voices in that room. Bristol Dirt, many say, was a Fox pet project. These networks are paying the league hundreds of millions of dollars each every single year. Let's not kid ourselves. Money buys at least some influence. I want to mention another Jeff Burton comment, again from the Door Bumper Clear podcast. I'll put the link down in the description if you'd like to check out the full episode. Burton also commented on the polarization of the playoff format discussion, saying, quote, most people I talk to, they're by themselves, not with a group of friends or whatever, most people by far like a version of the playoffs. But when they get in the pack, they'll be like, whatever he said. Tommy Baldwin, industry vet on the show, actually agreed with what Burton said. And I hesitate to draw broad conclusions from anecdotal individual stories. I can say in my own personal experience, similar to Jeff Burton, like I was at the track. I was at Bristol this weekend. I was out in the campgrounds and the fan zone for hours. I probably spoke to 200 fans. The topic of playoffs probably came up at least a dozen times. And I gotta say, every single person I talked to agreed that the current playoff format should probably be edited, but generally supported or understood the existence of some form of playoff. Again, that's just anecdotal. I hesitate to draw broad conclusions from that, but to Jeff Burton's point, I think there is a difference between the discourse you see on Twitter, on X, and what fans at the track or in person truly believe. I'm sure many of you have noticed on social media, you're either labeled a shill for the current system or you're blinded by nostalgia for the old ways. There's little in between. I know everything is polarized, but it's a shame that we've allowed that polarization to seep into NASCAR playoff format discourse. I'd rather spend that energy debating the merits, the structure of individual format ideas, but I understand it's naive to expect that kind of constructive conversation on the internet. I'll say my piece right here in case you haven't heard it yet. There are two main reasons that I generally support some form of a playoff format. The first reason, the biggest one, I like how it puts extra pressure on the teams. You can't coast and finish 8th every week and expect to win the championship. Truex in 2017 reached another level. Stewart in 2011 found another gear. Blaney at the end of 2023, final 6 races or so, was unbelievable. The regular season still matters for seeding, for playoff points, for bonus points, etc. But expectations, pressure rises a little bit those final 10 weeks. I like that. The second thing I like about a playoff format, this one less so, but still matters, I like that the 20 plus cars that beginning the year have no chance at winning the championship still have something tangible to fight for. Playoff team. Although I wish they'd do away with the name playoffs. I've never liked the name playoffs. I wish they'd have kept Chase. Chase for the Cup was more fitting in my eyes. But still, making the playoffs for these teams means more exposure, bonus money. You get to be labeled a playoff team, which you can sell to sponsors. Those mid-pack guys that have no shot at the title still have something tangible to fight for that every average person understands. I don't think the current format is perfect. The big changes I would make, and I've been talking about this since last year, I would expand the final round from 1 race to at least 3 or 4. It sounds like that's the direction NASCAR is leaning. Maybe you could reward more playoff points for regular season points finishes. Right now, the regular season champ gets 15 bonus points, second gets 10, third gets 8, fourth 7, so on and so on. Maybe the regular season champ gets 25 playoff points, and then 15, and then 10. A little extra bonus there for that regular season consistency. I could go on and on, but in a snapshot, those are the edits I would make, but also my defense of a form of playoffs. Again, I don't talk about this enough. They should have gone back to The Chase. That was more fitting for a racing series, and it was around long enough. I feel like it became recognizable from a branding perspective, but I could be wrong there. I guess the normie understands playoffs more than they understand Chase. What's that? Chase Elliott? Chase, what are we talking about? Anyway, share your thoughts down in the comment section below. I think a full season points format is totally valid. And I think IndyCar's late season TV ratings prove that the average fan doesn't care that much about the championship fight, frankly. That's probably too far. They care, but it's the subplot. The main storyline is that weekend's race, who's gonna win. So a full season points format is completely valid. I also think a playoff format with a larger sample size, get rid of that one race finale, I think a playoff format is valid too. But I want to know what y'all think. Leave a comment down in the comment section below. I always read the comments, believe it or not. But now it's time for my weekly NASCAR Cup Series power rankings. Enough playoff discussion, schedule, lawsuits. Let's talk about recent performance, drivers who are on a roll, slumping, all that good stuff. Let's see if your favorite driver made my top 10 this week. It was a rough week for some of the guys near the top of my power rankings. Larson, Hamlin, Elliott, Wallace, bad finishes at Bristol. Some of them maybe tumbled a bit further than others. Let's start at number 10. Tyler Reddick, had to drop him a couple of spots. The Reddick roller coaster continues. Led a lot of laps at Richmond, finished second at Darlington. And then 16th, 15th the last 2 weeks. Solid enough to get through round one, but Reddick begins this second round 3 points below the cut line. They need to be better if they're going to move on past the round of 12. Hendrick Motorsports was the big loser this week. One car got eliminated and Chase Elliott was dangerously close to that cut line. Big wreck at Bristol, it is what it is. He was strong though at Gateway the week before, finished third, so that gives me some hope Chase Elliott can begin the round of 12 on the right foot. New Hampshire, similar flat, shorter racetrack. Hopefully Chase can bounce back at New Hampshire this Sunday, and same could be said about his teammate Kyle Larson, who I have at 8. The bad, Larson finished 19th, 12th, and 32nd in that first round. But the good, he led laps in 2 of those 3 races, and thanks to his regular season success, he finds himself back above the cut line thanks to the reset. Larson's Bristol race was cooked pretty early on. Tires wore quick, he got some damage, was never able to be a factor, so I've got him at 8 this week. They're just too up and down for my liking. And to tie up the Hendrick trio, I've got William Byron at 7. Fine race at Bristol, finished 12th, but this is his 5th consecutive finish outside of the top 10. Ever since their convincing Iowa win, it's been a lot of from the regular season champion. We'll see if those playoff points carry them through the round of 12. Chances are, though, they'll need to turn some of those 12ths into legit top 10 runs. At 6, one of the big movers this week has to be the race winner, Christopher Bell, his 4th win of the year. This is a weird one, though, because it felt like Bell was in the mix all night long. And then I look at the data, 0 stage points, only 12 laps led. AJ Allmendinger, Brad Keselowski, and Carson Hocevar all led more laps than Bell. They played the strategy right, cautions fell their way, got the big restart at the end. Christopher Bell, with the win, moves up to 6th. Joey Logano moves up to 5th, back-to-back top 5 finishes. They struggled early at Bristol Saturday night, but Logano, crew chief Paul Wolfe were able to adjust on the fly, get back in the game. Joey has a solid 12.0 average finish the last 7 races. They are running pretty good, but unlike previous seasons, I do feel like 5th is kind of their ceiling right now. Maybe they can prove me wrong at Loudon this Sunday. We'll have to wait and see. Denny Hamlin comes in at 4. He finished 31st at Bristol. Pretty terrible. He said it on his podcast. They just never had a feel for the car. He couldn't even feel the tires. Never felt like he could really push them at all. Even when he did catch a timely caution and was up in the top 10, he couldn't hold on to that track position. It was just one race, though, and it was kind of a weird race. You got to remember, before Bristol, Hamlin finished 1st and 2nd to begin the playoffs. So if we zoom out, the speed from this team is very, very good. They will lose, I believe, a couple of pit crew members as a result result of the loose wheel, so that could impact them the next couple of weeks. Something to watch, but for now I've got DH at P4. This next one will be controversial, at least until I explain. Bubba Wallace up to number 3 despite a 34th place finish. Yeah, 34th. Terrible. I get it. And I knocked some of the Hendrick guys back a couple of spots for finishing outside the top 30. The difference, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson didn't earn a single stage point. They were never, ever a factor on Saturday. Bubba Wallace was. Bubba Wallace earned the 3rd most stage points Saturday night. He's led 10 or more laps in every playoff race so far. And the wreck that ultimately ended his night wasn't even his fault. Wrong place, wrong time. Keselowski and Custer got together. Bubba Wallace has gotten more consistent finishes than most of the guys on this list the past couple of months. 6 top 10s the last 9 weeks. Bubba Wallace at 3. After I've explained it, I don't think it's controversial anymore. That speed is for real. I know it's boring. My top 2 are still the same, although I'll admit the gap has gotten a lot closer. You could almost call them 1A, 1B. I've got Blaney at 2 still. He now has 8 top 10s the last 9 races. Back-to-back 4ths at 2 very different, very difficult racetracks. He's qualifying well. He's leading laps almost every week. Not much more you could ask for. That one race he didn't score a top 10, he got wrecked. So, Blaney, pretty good right now. But I gotta keep Chase Briscoe in the top spot. Another top 10, led 137 laps at Bristol. He's opened the playoffs now with a 1st, 2nd, 9th. I mean, what else do you want me to say? And we're going to New Hampshire this week. The former driver of the 19, Martin Truex Jr., was always pretty good there. I expect Chase Briscoe to do more of the same. Pick up right where MTJ left off. There's my top 10. Rough week for the Hendrick cars. Their speed, their execution has been hit or missed the past few weeks. Moving up though, Joey Logano, Christopher Bell, top 5 runs, a win for Bell. Blaney continuing to do his thing. Briscoe too. Leave a comment down below if you agree with my rankings or if you disagree. Let me know what you think. Always love sharing my power rankings with y'all, and I always love reading the comments afterwards. Thank you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more NASCAR commentary every day, every week, all year. I really appreciate your ongoing support. I won't be at New Hampshire this week. I will be at Kansas, though, the following week. I've sort of backloaded my schedule. Didn't go to many races this summer, but I got 3 playoff races here late in the year at the very least, so you'll see me at the track again soon. Thanks for the support, folks. I'll catch you in the next video.